what I want to do is, a lot of people have been talking about the hate speech laws in New Zealand, and they have been quite controversial because some people say that it is not right to label certain speech as hate speech. And other people are saying, well, you can't just go into a public place and start, calling people slurs, right? Like, do you think I'd be allowed to go outside and say, oh, this person is a, N-word, start shouting the N-word at everyone, especially like shouting the N-word at black people, right? If I went outside, started shouting the N-word at black people, right? Now, I could say that this is my free speech, I'm allowed to do that, but not really, right? It's like, there would be some people that would come along and clock me in the face if I started doing that. You definitely have that happen. But, like, should I be allowed to do that? I don't think so. I think that there is a limit. Now, you could classify that as harassment, which I think that's a good way to put it down as harassment, because I'm going outside and shouting things. Public indecency. Public indecency is a thing that is illegal, and hate speech seems like it could be a subsection of public indecency if you're doing it in public, of course. But what I want to do is I want to see what I agree with, what I disagree with in this here. I probably won't go through all 36 pages. I'll probably just go through like the summary because so we'll start with summary of proposals, and we'll actually see what it says, right? Rather than just saying, oh, you're not going to be allowed to call someone a Karen, right? We'll actually look at what it says. Because that's what a lot of people have been saying. They've been saying, oh, you can't do this because... And it's like, no, we want to. And you can also make a submission. If you disagree with this, tell the government about it. If you agree with some and disagree with others, say, hey, look, I think that we want to... You got until the 6th of August, right? You got a week and 5... You got until, not this Friday, but the Friday after, to say, hey, look, I disagree with certain things, right? So let's go through. So, summary of proposals. The government has agreed in principle to all of the proposals listed below. In principle, agreements means a broad, general agreement to the proposals, but not on detailed specific changes. This means the government thinks that the changes are a good idea, but wants to hear what other people think before making a final decision and proposing legislation to change the law. The proposals may be changed based on feedback received. That is very important, right? Like, if it's one of them things where if they get a lot of backlash about certain things in the summary of proposals, they can go, okay, well, we're just not going to include that, right? It's something that it's more democratic this way, actually, if you think about it. Sure, it's not a referendum or anything, but it's saying, hey, look, let's get the public's feedback, rather than it just being made behind closed doors. So I think that's a good thing. A detailed description of these proposals and the reasons they are being proposed is available from page 17 of this document. I might take a look there because that skips quite a bit. These proposals are only a small part of the government's response to the recommendations of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the terrorist attack at Christchurch, Massachusetts on 15th of March 2019. Some of the other government work to understand and address hate crime and hate speech more generally is listed in page 25. You can find more information about this and other work to respond to the recommendations here. Alright. Proposals against incitement of hatred/hostility, increasing the groups that are protected by the incitement provisions. Proposal 1. Change the language in the incitement provisions in the Human Rights Act 1993 so they protect more groups that are targeted by hate speech. Currently, a group of people that are protected under the Act if hatred is incited in a specific way against them because of their colour, race, ethnic, or national origins. Under this proposal, more groups would be protected by the law if hatred was incited against them due to a characteristic they have. This may include some or all of the other grounds in the Human Rights Act. These grounds are listed in Section 21 of the Act, which is included at Appendix 1. Okay, so my thoughts. I think that's probably reasonable, right? Because this does not include, like, if you are, if someone incites hatred against you because you are trans, or if you are gay, if you are, mostly that, then it's not considered, it's not considered hateful speech, right? Someone does it because you're. I think there'd still be a few other things that wouldn't be protected, right? But those are the first things that come to mind. Disabled, right? If you're disabled, that's not included in colour, race, ethnic, or national origins. So if you're disabled, trans, if you're gay or bi or whatnot, then you're not protected. So I think that's fairly good. Okay, making clearer what behaviour the law prohibits, increasing the consequences for breaking the law. Proposal 2. Replace the existing criminal provision in the Human Rights Act 1993 with a new criminal offence in the Crimes Act 1961 that is clearer and more effective. I do have to say that I may be a bit iffy on this part here. The law would change so that a person who intentionally incites, stirs up, maintains, or normalizes hatred against any specific group of people based on a characteristic listed in Proposal 1 would break the law if they did so by being threatening, abusive, or insulting, including by inciting violence. Okay. Alright, so this is something very interesting, because I thought I might be disagreeing here when I saw the normalizing hatred part, because normalizes hatred, that's something that does seem very broad, but you got to do so by being threatening, abusive, or insulting, or inciting violence. Now, now inciting violence, I think that's illegal. I think that's already illegal. Threatening, that's threatening, abusive, or insulting. Now, insulting is one of the ones that's kind of broad. I don't like the wording here because I insult people all the time, but I don't think that it's good to insult people based on like certain characteristics. Like I don't think that it's good to, like, if you try and insult me by calling me a cracker, right? Then I think that's bad, right? I don't think that you should call me a cracker to try and insult me. I think that there's more entertaining insults that you can do, right? And I wouldn't be insulted by that, and I certainly wouldn't want you to get you arrested. The normalizes hatred part, that is a hard part to say that it's one of them things where I don't want people to normalize hatred, and I think that it needs to be, I think that people need to be cognizant, the word, I can't remember the exact word, I think it's something like cognizant, something hard to pronounce, and think, okay, will this normalize hatred against a certain group of people? Like, for example, a classic example would be, trigger warning here, I'm gonna say the R word. Alright? So, a classic example would be the use of the word retard, right? That word, a lot of people don't like when you say that, right? And I think that there are some cases where you shouldn't say that, right? If you are calling a disabled person retarded, you should not do that, because that is a word that is generally more insulting, right? And there is discussion of whether that's a good word to use. Some people say that you got people on one side saying that no, you should never say that word. In fact, there are some people that would have me cancelled for saying that word just now. I don't think that it's good. As I said, I don't think that it's good to use it on people that actually suffer from either cognitive impairment or especially if they suffer from like if you've got ADHD, for example. If someone's calling you retarded for having ADHD, I think that's a bad thing, because it is normalizing hatred. If they're calling you that, though, for having ADHD, right? I think that you can say it in a in a way that isn't normalizing hatred, right? Because I don't think that... Well, I think that it's actually bad to link it being... I think that it's probably a bad idea to link it with mental disabilities, because of the simple fact that in a way, it's kind of looping back around and calling people with mental disabilities... Yeah, it is a derogatory word, and it is meant to elicit emotions, right? You're basically calling someone stupid, but in a more derogatory way. And I think the issue is that, so when I was growing up, everyone said it. I was, I'd probably be called retarded, every couple of days. And, everyone said it. And it did get to a point where it just didn't refer to the people that it initially referred to. People that had that were mentally impaired. And I think that it can be good to have a word no longer mean what it was initially. Because, stupid used to be essentially the same, just not as what's the word for it? Abrasive, I guess, is the way to put it. And so, I think that is one of them things where by using words you can make them lose meaning, and sometimes that's good. I think that... Now, obviously, completely ignoring the meaning is maybe a bad thing. There are some words that I don't use specifically because I understand that they have meaning, and maybe losing the meaning would be a bad thing. And I mean bad thing as in given the entire context of the word, right? So the N-word, for example, I'm not going to use that to try and make it lose meaning, because I do understand that it is a harmful word. It has a long history. I would like the word to no longer be offensive, but it will always have that history about it, right? And if I use it 1,000 times It's just going to make me seem like a dick rather than making it lose that history. People can understand what I mean, right? But yeah, as I said, like, I think it's more about how you... I think words, it's more how you use it. Alright, if someone calls me the N-word, I'm just going to be like... I'd probably be more flattered if someone calls me the N-word, but mostly because they're probably, like, using it in a more endearing way, right? But if they used it in an offensive way, I'd be confused, because I'd be like, do you mean cracker? So yeah, anyway, continuing on, the person would break the law no matter how they made the threat, abuse, or insult. It would not matter if it was verbally made to another person in writing, in drawing or words, or online, such as on social media, in an email, or a digital message. Okay, that's fair. That is fair if you agree with this, right? Because, you know, if I go online and start calling people the N-word, then that's a bad thing. You know, that's whether I should get fined for it is another question. Proposal 3: increase the punishment for the criminal offence to better reflect the seriousness. It would be changed from up to 3 months imprisonment or a fine of up to $7,000 to up to 3 years imprisonment or a fine of up to $50,000. I'm not too... I don't think that the... Yeah, I'm not too keen on this part. Yeah, I'm not too keen on this. I think that it would be better educating people on what is good and what's bad. Yeah, I'm not too keen on maybe up to like $10,000 fine and maybe like 6 months imprisonment at most. But I'm not too keen on this part. Proposal 4. Change the language of the civil incitement provision to match the changes being made to the criminal provision. Okay, that seems fair. Yeah. Improving the protections against wider discrimination. Proposal 5. Change the civil provision so that it makes incitement to discriminate against the law. Okay, this is actually fair, I think. The law would change so that a person was prohibited from inciting or stirring up other people to discriminate against any groups because of a characteristic protected by the law. A person who encourages others to treat members of a protected group worse or differently than others would be breaking the law. This would mean that a person could then complain to the Human Rights Commission. Yep, I agree with this. Yep, I do agree with this. Like, it's like if I say, like, let's say I take what's his name, Steven Crowder, and his whole thing against Carlos Maza, I think, that Vox guy, and you know he was basically inciting discrimination against that person, which is not a good thing. I can see that, and that actually makes this kind of make sense, right? This part here, it makes it make sense. Okay, I can kind of see that. I think that. Yeah, so here's the thing. I think that the 3 years imprisonment or a fine of up to $50,000 should probably only count for like things like incitement to discriminate, because here's the thing, I think that it's much better to go after people that incite others to discriminate rather than the people doing the discrimination, right? Sure, it makes you more money if you go after everybody doing the discrimination, but if I am a influential person and I'm saying you should hate this group of people, you should discriminate against this group of people, then that's something that is more on me than those individual people, right? Like, they may not have done that if it wasn't for me, if I were to say that. So I think that, I think that this is fair. Proposal 6. Add to the grounds of discriminations in the Human Rights Act to clarify that trans, gender diverse, and intersex people are protected from discrimination. Currently, as it is against the law to discriminate against people because of their sex, the government considers that this protects against discrimination because of gender identity or gender expression or people's sex characteristics or intersex status, but the law could be clear about this. The law would change to specifically cover these aspects of gender and sex. Yep, I think that should be done. If you're going to be consistent, be consistent. I like this. I think that they could also add disabled people. I think that I think that that's something that could be added. If I'm being completely honest, I think that they could add about disabled people, because I know that disabled people get a lot of hate. So yeah, do they? I want to see if this contains any word on disabilities. Okay, so it does currently protect disabled people. Okay, cool. And this is page 17, so... Okay, cool. It's good to clarify, because I didn't know that until now. Yeah, it sucks that disabled people are kind of... like, it's only first mentioned on page 17. It could have mentioned it earlier. So, yeah, it says, what is the current law? It says, oh, it's not included under the current law. My bad. I didn't read the thing. Yeah. So religion, gender, sexuality, and disability. So it wants to add that in. Okay. The government thinks that the incitement of hatred for these reasons is also wrong and worthy of being subject to civil and criminal processes. The Royal Commission also considered that religion should be included in the provisions. Yeah, that makes sense. That's one of the things where it gets murky, because if I don't want, as long as it doesn't become criminal to say, I believe that your religion is wrong and here's why. Or if I were to say, I think that your religion is based on superstition, or I think that your religion is nonsense. But then again, if I'm saying that their religion is nonsense, I'm not attacking them as a person, I am attacking their religion. So, yeah. Yeah, I think that I'd probably be okay with saying that religions are wrong. I think that saying that religious people should be persecuted or something would be one of the things where it would say, hey, you probably shouldn't, you know. It'd be like if I were to say that flat earthers should all be murdered or something, then that would be a bit of a problem, right? What will this proposal do? We've already seen what this proposal will do. So this is the more expanded version of the proposal. So the proposal would change the wording. This would still apply to groups based on color, race, ethnic or national origin, or also cover speech that incites hatred or hostility against other groups protected from discrimination by the Human Rights Act. Groups experience hateful speech based on other grounds as well. The government considers that other groups and experience hateful speech that experience hateful speech could also be protected by the law, and that is interested in views on the groups that should be protected by this change. In practice, this means that if someone said or wrote something that met the other requirements in the law and was targeting a group based on a characteristic included, a complaint could be made to the Human Rights Commission or to the police. The Commission or the police would then determine what actions to take. Okay. So, yeah, that seems like, that seems fair. Do you agree that, so it says, do you agree that broadening the incitement provisions in this way would be better protect these groups? Why or why not? Yeah, I think that that's good. I think that proposal 1 is good. I think, yeah. Proposal 2, replace the existing criminal provision with a new criminal offence in the Crimes Act that is clearer and more effective. What is the current law? As described earlier in the document, there is a crime of intentionally inciting racial disharmony in Aotearoa Section 131 of the Human Rights Act. This is a complicated provision and is difficult to understand. It uses 4 terms: hostility, ill will, contempt, and ridicule, which have broad meanings and could also potentially overlap. Yeah, I think that ridicule... Actually, no. Yeah, like, ridicule is okay, but... ridicule in some instances should be I think you should be able to ridicule people, but probably not based on their on the things that is mentioned, right? Like, if I'm ridiculing you for being religious, that is different than ridiculing your religion. So yeah, I can see that. It also uses the word excite, which in a way that is not often used in day-to-day language. The Royal Commission noted that, unlike the civil provision, it does not cover electronic communications. What would this proposal do? This proposal would create a new criminal provision in the Crimes Act that is clearer and easier to understand than Section 131 of the Human Rights Act. Under this proposal, the terms hostility, ill will, and contempt will be replaced by hatred. This word was suggested by the Royal Commission, which acknowledged that the change would narrow the meaning of words when compared to the current offence. Yep, I think that it's probably good. Because if I say, ridicule is different to hatred, right? Like, if I say that a group of people believe in a Sky Daddy, that can be considered ridicule, right? But hatred would be like saying that a group of obnoxious people believe in a Sky Daddy or something, right? That would be more considered hatred. I can understand that. Alright. The exact wording of this provision would be determined following consultation. This includes whether to use the term incite, stir up, or some other term with the same meaning. This proposal would prohibit speech that maintains or normalizes hatred in addition to speech that incites or stirs up hatred. This ensures that communications that may be aimed at people who may already hold extreme views would be unlawful. So this ensures that communications that may be aimed at people who may already hold extreme views would be unlawful. Wait, is it? Okay, so it's like saying that... Okay, that's a very confusing way to word it. Like, I don't want to be like, if I say, hey, look, I think that your extreme QAnon beliefs are stupid. I don't think that I don't think that would be a good thing to protect. The proposal would cover all methods of communicating speech, including by electronic means. This proposal would protect freedom of expression by ensuring that only extreme hate speech is criminalized, and that there must be an intention to cause others to develop and strengthen hatred. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I love this part. There must be an intention to cause others to develop and strengthen hatred towards a group. Yes, I think that this is good. I think that this is a good thing because, like, there is worries that, you know, like so for example, calling someone a Karen could be, it's like some people view that as hate speech, right? And say that it's sexist, but I see it as, you know, calling people's bullshit out, right? I don't think that it's actually kind of aimed at people that are privileged as well. So it's punching up more than punching down. So, like, if I say that, oh, this person is a Karen, I'm more describing that person and not so much trying to... the intention isn't to develop and strengthen hatred towards Karens, right? Or towards white women, right? Like, I'm not trying to say, oh, white women are bad. I'm saying that this particular person has characteristics, i.e. wants to talk to your manager, that I think is bad. And it's not always a white woman. It's sometimes a guy. Like, some guys go full Karen, right? And Karen is just a general term for someone that is crazy, wants to talk to your manager, and holds contemptible, or does contemptible things. Yeah, like, I'll call a guy a Karen too, Seraph. And that's why I don't think that Karen is... I don't think that's hate speech, right? The new offense would be... So yeah, I do like this here, like the intention to cause others to develop, right? Because, like, here's the thing, like, if I go on Facebook and I post a status of that's stirring up, like, if I say this group should be kicked out of the country or something, then some people may say that there's no intention there to cause others to develop and strengthen hatred towards a group. But there kind of is, right? You're saying that you're basically getting other people, trying to get other people to agree with you on that thing. And so, yeah, this is fair enough. And it just says the feedback. Alright, so current law, you know, it says the current penalty is if someone is found guilty of the criminal incitement, a maximum of 3 months in prison or a maximum fine of $7,000. What's the problem? Based on the assessment of the seriousness of the behaviour covered by the new criminal provision and a comparison with criminal offences, the government considers the current penalties are too low. The Royal Commission also said penalties were too low and proposed a increased maximum period of up to 3 years. What would this proposal do? The proposal would increase the maximum penalty for the new criminal offence to 3 years imprisonment or a fine of up to $50,000. As this offence captures behaviour that seeks to spread hatred towards groups in society, the government considers that the penalties should be higher for those directing hate at an individual. Okay, yep, exactly what I said earlier. Exactly what I said. So some comparable offences are the offence for disorderly behaviour in Section 3 of the Summary of Offences Act in 1981 has a maximum penalty of 3 months imprisonment and a fine of $2,000. The offence for posting a harmful digital communication in Section 22 of the Harmful Digital Communications Act 2015 has a maximum penalty of 2 years imprisonment or a fine of $50,000. What? How's... Oh, that would be like doxing, wouldn't it? Okay. Yeah, that would be doxing and stuff. So if I were to dox someone, that's actually illegal. I think. Right? Because that could be harmful to someone, right? I think so. The offence for threatening to kill or cause grievous bodily harm in Section 306 of the Crimes Act has a maximum penalty of 7 years. Wow. So threatening to kill. Okay. Maybe we should lower this, right? Right, although, to be fair, right, if you are threatening to kill and there's a... I can kind of get it. Like, if you're not being serious, like, if I threaten to kill you in a video game and that gets taken the wrong way, like, I'm not going to face 7 years imprisonment. Right? Like, there's... Like, judges are reasonable. Or juries are, at least. The offence for making or distributing an objectionable publication in Section 124 of the Films, Videos, Publications, Classifications Act has a maximum penalty of 14 years imprisonment. Holy shit. Yeah, I disagree with this here, like, definitely. I do disagree with that. Yeah, this is something that I think should be lowered, right? Like, if I make... Because, like... Would making a YouTube video be considered that? Like, because... Yeah, I'd have to see, but... Because that would be technically distributing an objectionable publication. Like, if I made certain things in a YouTube video... Like, if I published an ISIS YouTube video, like, that would be distributing an objectionable publication, right? If I showed, like, certain things from ISIS. Alright. What is the current law? As described earlier... Okay, so this is change the language. Alright, so if Proposal 2 is implemented, there would be inconsistency between wording used in criminal and civil provisions. This would create uncertainty about what is differences between inciting and stirring up hatred and exciting hostility or bringing into contempt. It may not be clear that a complaint could be made under civil provision for the incitement of hatred. Making this distinction between the civil and criminal provisions is not intended. What would this proposal do? This proposal would change the wording in the civil incitement provision to include inciting, stirring up, maintaining, or normalizing hatred alongside the existing wording. There should be consistency between the civil and criminal provisions in this type of behaviour that is prohibited. It is desirable that hatred be included in the civil provision so that civil liability is also imposed for communication that is most serious and damaging. The current proposal does not make any other changes to the civil provision. The Royal Commission noted that the wording of civil provision raises issues of enforceability because it is also unclear. The provision may need other changes to make it clear on what behaviour that covers other than incitement or of hatred. Okay. So this is fair, I think. Alright. Improving the protections against discrimination, more broadly. Alright. What is the problem? Under the ICCPR, the advocacy of national, racial, or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, and violence shall be prohibited by law. Aotearoa has signed up to the ICCPR, but incitement to discrimination is not currently prohibited by Aotearoa law. The proposed changes would allow Aotearoa to better align with our ICCPR. What this proposal do? It would make it unlawful to incite others to discriminate against members of those groups protected by the who would also be covered by the incitement of hatred provision. Discrimination means to treat someone worse than others because of something about them, like their ethnicity or gender. Like proposal for this would change the wording of the civil provision. There are a few things that are unclear, like about this. Like, I think that harassing someone due to something like their gender or something is bad. Like if I were to slide into someone's DMs, right, only to harass them, like that's a bad thing and should probably not be allowed. What the punishment for that should be, like, firstly, they have the option to block, but like if they don't have the option to block, like if I'm in public or something, then it's a little bit more unclear because like you can follow someone around in public, but that's harassment, right? That is harassment. I don't think that it should be one of those things where, like, if someone yells at me in public, the first offence should obviously be a slap on the wrist, saying next time it's going to be worse. Let them know that there is problems with that, but the second time, yeah. Repeated behaviour is like an important thing, I think. Proposal 6 adds to the grounds of discrimination in the Human Rights Act to clarify that transgender, diverse, and intersex people are just protected from discrimination. Yeah, I think... I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Oh, we are aware of other wording that may be used, such as variations of sex characteristics or non-binary as opposed to gender diverse. Non-binary would... Gender diverse. Well, what would be better? I want to get everyone's opinions. What would be better? Would it be better to use non-binary or gender diverse? I'm actually... No, gender diverse sounds like it would catch, like, non-binary, wouldn't it? Like, gender identity... Like, gender identity. Like, saying that you can't discriminate on gender identity would be, like, a catch-all. Like, it would even catch trans. But then, like, non-binary is included in... trans, isn't it? So, that's an interesting one. Yeah, variations of sex characteristics. I'm guessing that's used for intersex people. Is there anything other than intersex, right? So if you... so you've got, like, male. So when it comes to sex, you got male, female, and intersex. Is there, like, a fourth? Because I know that, like, intersex is, like, covers, like, a lot of things. Is there, like, a fourth thing? Like maybe asex? Oh, Ross Thatcher with the... coming in with, like, implying that I'm a female. I mean, I don't think he's seen some of the photos of me on Twitter. Hey. That's actually an interesting thing. Like, if anyone were to try and... someone were to actually go through and make a video on me, like, you know, the whole transvestigation thing. Like, firstly, like, transvestigation is... Well, that's kind of transphobic. You mean I'm not? Hey, like... yeah, Boomer from Blackrod. Boomer from Blackrod has it. So, sometimes I identify as a cat. Like, you know, there's that picture of me on Twitter as a cat girl. But like, okay, so what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something about, oh yeah, like if someone were to transvestigate me, like, firstly, like, that would be transphobic. Like, you're implying that trans people are bad, and then you're saying that I was born female, and that I'm now male, and usually they misgender, right? I'm not a furry. Don't worry, I'm not a furry. In fact, like, the cat... So I've got these cat ears here, right? Like, they're not really... If I put them on, I don't become a furry, right? So... Alright. So yeah, that's just a brief aside. You're gonna welcome me to the furry community. No, I'm not. I'm not a furry. I've never really been into, not really into fursuits. Like fursuits just seem kind of. Somehow. Oh, so Ross said, if you identify as a bloke, I accept it. Where's your beard? Lol. Okay, so you're like, I shave. I like... Shaving is something that I like to do. I used to not shave, and then I look back on that, I'm like, I just don't look like... I don't like how I look in those old videos where I didn't shave for ages. I'm much more consistent with my shaving now. Sometimes I will have a little bit of a beard going on, but not a great one. Related work. Oh, here's some related work not being consulted in this document. Okay, strengthening the capacity of the Human Rights Commission to respond to hate speech, racism, and discrimination. Police lead work to accurately identify, record, report, and respond to hate-related crime. Ministry of Justice relating to hate crime. Work to counter violent extremism and terrorism. Changes to the definition of objectionable unto... Oh, that's... Are they going to reduce it? Because I think that'd be probably a good thing. The creation of the Ministry of Ethnic Communities to improve outcome for ethnic communities. Okay. I'm not sure how that would go. Work on social cohesion, developing a national action plan against racism, and work on strengthening resilience to mis- and disinf... Yes! I like that there. Work on strengthening resilience to mis- and disinformation. Okay. Okay, so this bill, I only have a few problems with it. And that is, it's still a little bit unclear about what exactly would be considered. Because I do agree, right, that if you are inciting discrimination against a group of people, that, yeah, like, you should have consequences. Right? You should have consequences if you're just inciting discrimination. I think there should be like a bit more clarification on levels, right? Like, there's a difference between someone's racist granddad inciting discrimination and I don't know, Brian Tamaki inciting discrimination. I'm sure Brian Tamaki probably has incited discrimination in some respect. Right? And so, yeah, I think that there is I do think that it is something that we should be able to have conversations on, right? So if I, for example, let's say that there was a statistic that was brought up, right? That I decided, okay, this means that this group of people is wrong or something, right? Let's say that. Then I don't think that that should be shut down for hate speech. However, I think that it is okay to cancel someone, like if they start saying 1350, right? Like, yeah, let's say 1350, right? I think that that's a discussion that, as long as you are not saying that this group of people is bad because of it, that you should be able to have that discussion. Because, like, firstly, when you make those discussions illegal, people often get this idea that for some reason you're trying to censor that. And there's understandable reasons why you'd be trying to censor that, because, you don't want people to be racist. But then at the same time, that is a potentially damaging conversation. Right, so if I'm saying 1350, then people might come along and say, well, that means that we've got to kick black people out of the country or something, which that may not be even though that may be the argument that a lot of people would be making because of that, that's not necessarily the argument that I might intend. So it's very nuanced. Which is often the thing that a lot of people have with this. There are nuanced conversations, right, to have. And it's like, okay, what? It's asking the question of, why is 1350 a thing? This is America, obviously. But why is 1350 a thing? Well, higher policing in black communities means that black people get found for crimes more often, and they get sentenced, even though sometimes these people aren't guilty. So that's a thing that people need to be able to, because people will look at statistics and look at them in a vacuum and go, this means this, right? And they'll have conversations with people that won't consider that hate speech, right? And then those people will get sucked in. You'll have more people getting sucked in, and it's like, okay. Then you got a whole lot of people that they have been sharing communications that wouldn't be considered hate speech, but because they're sharing it between each other, but because they haven't shared it publicly, or when they go to share it publicly, it's struck down as hate speech, and so then that they create an echo chamber essentially, which isn't open to discussion of it. That's what a lot of flat earthers do. They create an echo chamber where they are discussing look at Nathan Oakley's debate show, right? It's an echo chamber. That's all it is. And the less, because essentially, what happens is Nathan Oakley, if you disagree with him, he tries to stop you from having a voice. So yeah, that's my opinion on it. But what do other people think?